Adrian Lyne has returned from some kind of crazy directing hiatus to bring the erotic thriller Deep Water to Hulu. It stars Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck, so grab your snorkel and some wine. Let's dive in. A well-to-do husband who allows his wife to have affairs in order to avoid a divorce becomes a prime suspect in the disappearance of her lovers. It's been 20 years since Lyne has directed anything. Now, if you're unfamiliar with his name, he's helmed movies like 9.5 Weeks, Fatal Attraction, Indecent Proposal, Lolita, and Unfaithful. I think 20 years may have been too long of a hiatus for him because this movie is just straight up poo. All of the fault, though, can't be laid at Lyne's feet. He didn't write the story, but he is in charge of the on-screen execution. Now, the premise is ridiculous, and I think it's unbelievable, especially because we're not really given any rationale for the couple's behaviors. Ana de Armas as Melinda is constantly having affairs. I mean, she's even traipsing her love interests around her house and at parties. In fact, not only does her husband know about the men that she sleeps with, but all of their friends do too. While the friends may say something, to Ben Affleck's Vic, we never see them actually confront Melinda, which I think is a little bit odd. And then we have Vic, who is visibly upset that his wife is sleeping around and not even being covert about it. But he puts up with it. And in some cases, it appears that it even turns him on. All right, so even if we go with that, at some point, Vic is bothered by it. And then he threatens one of the boyfriends by saying that this missing acquaintance of all of theirs was actually killed by Vic. Now, had the story ridden with this for a while and then built some intrigue around whether or not Vic actually did kill this guy, that could have created some good interest and tension. But the problem is that other than him saying it and then trying to pass it off as a joke, we quickly learn the truth, which then kills all the suspense. No pun intended. And then when other sequences arise where there is doubt on Vic's actions, instead of writing that mystery and playing it up, the story then shows us exactly what happened. There's never any anxiety or uncertainty. Everything is just shown to us. So the story removes tension and mystery, which then removes any thrills as well. It's all laid out in front of us and never hidden or even attempted to be misdirecting. And then we have the dynamic of Vic and Melinda. Now, sure, they're absolutely dysfunctional, and not because their situation falls outside the norm. They are like oil and water much of the time, where it seems as if each is just repulsed by the other. We see them constantly fighting and giving each other disapproving looks, but then they'll also be flirty and all over each other. There's one scene that really does feel like it was accidentally edited together, because we are shown the pair in a car where Melinda is visibly upset with Vic, and when he tries to touch her, she snaps and yells at him, "Don't touch me!" Then in the very next scene is them just very much getting it on. That is so abrupt of a change, it's just jarring. Now, if you're diving into this movie because you think it's going to be an erotic thriller, because that's much of what Lyne has directed in the past, I think you're going to be disappointed. There's not much sex and very little, if any, eroticism. The movie hints at things, but mostly that's where it stays. Now, sure, there are some sex scenes and there's some nudity, but not nearly to the amount that you'd expect when you're thinking of an erotic thriller. And it doesn't even need to show a lot to make it titillating. The sexiness can come from imagination. But I didn't find anything sexy about some dude angrily staring and brooding while his wife is hitting on some rando. Now, not absolutely everything in this film is trash. Lil Rel Howery is wonderful as he plays Vic's friend who he says what we're all thinking. And even Affleck and de Armas aren't bad in their performances. It's just the roles and the story are so lacking that it seems like they're the ones causing the movie to be poor. As the film gets to its climax, there is a sequence that is absolutely predictable, and then it's completely ridiculous. A character discovers some information and then acts in such a frenzied manner that you can tell what will happen from pretty much the beginning of the scene. Now, some of the cinematography in this works. There are these voyeuristic shots that create some interest, but the creepy and intrusive kind of interest. I think there were a few different avenues that this film could have taken to actually create something that had mystery and thrills instead of having everything be exactly as it's said to be. Tracy Letts plays one of the characters, and I would have loved to have seen his character take a different turn in the narrative. There is an opportunity for the story to use him in a much more effective and then even surprising way. And had the story chosen this path, the intrigue and even the darkness would have been increased dramatically. So overall, Deep Water lacks suspense, tension, anxiety, thrills, and even eroticism. The performances are fine, but they're not enough to elevate the story into one that's worth checking out. The character dynamic is unexplained, making their relationship not even seem slightly plausible, which then removes any closeness or intimacy that they could ever try to convey to us. Sure, we watch almost 2 hours of people being frustrated with each other, but if I'm going to sit through discomfort, there better be a payoff. But I didn't even get uncomfortable in this. The lack of intrigue within the story only works to cause frustration, boredom, and then confusion as to why I'm still watching. I really like the concept of the central story, but by laying everything out so plainly without any misdirection, this just becomes a look into an odd relationship that holds no weight or meaning. There's sex, nudity, a ton of profanity, and some violence. I give Deep Water 1 out of 5 couches. So, what did you think of this one? Did you like it or hate it more than me? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.